cutting government spending and focusing on lowering national debt was a hot topic in January, several months ago. Same as the calls to verify the existence of gold at Fort Knox. However, since then, since January or early February, it appears that have not really been any meaningful discussions about any of those things. But the most recent data shows that the United States spent nearly 1 billion with a B, $1 billion since January of this year bombing Yemen. Then the current administration approved nearly $12 billion in weapon sales to Israel. Now we're in April and President Trump is requesting a record-breaking 1 trillion with a T, $1 trillion in Pentagon budget. So previously, Trump promised to cut military spending. Now he's actually increasing it. Many people are quite disappointed and shocked and confused, unsure what to think about it or whether they should, just need to give it more time and see how it goes. How does one make sense of such a stark difference between the current administration's activities, the implemented policies with respect to government spending and quite interventionist position versus the promises to cut government spending and to end wars, to end conflicts that we all heard during the election campaign?
Well, it builds distrust, and the distrust is justified, and sometimes it's healthy. When people lose confidence in that and all the false promises, they might get together and start talking about changing things and what should they do. So it's something that it's very hard to believe that they go ahead and do this. You mentioned the $1 trillion that they're by the end of this year they're going to spend on militarism. Well, there was another person from the administration. They seem to be bragging about it. Representing the administration that possibly in next year it's going to be $2 trillion. It makes no sense at all. It's so immoral because they're printing the money. They're counterfeiters that are doing this. It's fraud. It leads to no good result. And it just leads to, just think how much money has been used, and the money, the $1 trillion we're talking about here, and that's going every place, the Middle East and Ukraine. How many people died? How many people were innocent bystanders? They were civilians, and yet it's almost all our money. Yeah, people say, yeah, but the Americans aren't dying. But the Americans are suffering from it because we're paying for it. So, but it's a terrible, terrible foreign policy to do this and then do it in the name and pretense of getting elected. I'm going to stop wars, but so we have to be a little cautious because maybe some good will come of it. Because on the watching, as bad as this plan to cut the budget has been, it hasn't really worked out. It's still, if you look at what USAID has been revealed, people say, holy man, we didn't know it was that bad. So information is important. And we ought to do that, find out what's going on with the Federal Reserve and find out how they're spending all the Pentagon money. A lot of more people would wake up. Right now, people are just struggling to get by and live on what they have. And that makes it difficult to get them excited about some of the things they consider esoteric.
The U.S. just deployed about 1/3 of its B-2 bombers, based on my understanding, among other high-value military assets, to Diego Garcia and increased its military presence in the region. So we're doing exactly the opposite of what non-interventionalism would want us to do, right? And is this merely an offensive posturing to force the revival of the JCPOA with Iran? Or is there a risk that the Trump administration is indeed positioning itself to intervene militarily in the region, with Iran specifically?
Well, I think they are. How fast they're going to go, and they work in collusion with Israel, and what Israel's desires are. So no, they're preparing for that. Let's hope and pray they don't get that far. But we're doing it in Yemen. Look how dangerous that is because that's considered an outpost for Iran. And yet we've been in there killing a lot of people, spending a lot of money. That's where that $1 billion was spent. And how many Americans even could find Yemen on a map? So that's why, the bankruptcy of this country is a blessing in disguise because there's going to be a lot of suffering. But if the governments of the world, the people of the world continue to trust the dollar and let us endlessly continue to ignore our deficits and spend it and run our military industrial complex and satisfy them, and then also get involved in this foreign policy, things will get much worse. But eventually, though, people give up on the currency, and that is the big unknown. We know it'll happen, but we don't know whether it's going to be this year or 2 years from now or whenever.
It seems that many people here in the United States struggle with one simple question as it relates to the events in the Middle East. And I would just love to get your perspective on this. So the question is, does Iran pose a threat, a security threat to the United States of America to warrant these activities?
No, I don't think the average American walked down the street and asked him an honest question. Are you worrying today about Iran coming here and hurting you? There would be 1% of people that said that. They said that about Saddam Hussein. They were all lies. They built up the hatred and that shows you that the control of the media and the propaganda is very, very powerful because the big governments like this that act out of the law, have to work on fear mongering. They have to scare people, and yet they have to know the truth, and they have to realize that the policies have to change. But you cannot expect it to happen gracefully. That is the problem. So there's a lot of errors. If we look at it more close at home, if a husband and a wife spends and gets into debt and they get up to $1 million in debt, and how are they going to get out of it? They have to declare bankruptcy or they have to get another job and all these things. But if today they go to the government will probably bail out most of the people because they caused the problem. So that's a pretty big problem, not easily solved.